Okay, let's see if that was able to fix any problems. I still get a little bit of an echo on my end, but I think that is just a streamer issue. Anyone out there in the interwebs want to give any feedback on how the audio is? I hope things are better? Question mark? If not, then I guess we'll just try to muscle through, and perhaps I'll do an audio recording and just mount it on top. We'll see. So now we're reflecting on how we were yesterday, how we are today, how we were this time last year. And what differences did you find? Did you notice that there were more positive changes in the last year than there were negative changes? That's awesome. Are there more negative changes? Thank you, Mr. Mike, for the technical feedback that you're watching on the YouTubes. I can only assume. I appreciate you letting me know that I have transcended space and time, and apparently on YouTube I am a full 2 seconds ahead of everything else. So I will let you know what happens 2 seconds from now. Anywho, so looking back on the negative, were they really negative? Or were they just lessons that you needed to learn? Sometimes we can see the negative before we actually pay attention. And again, I am not alluding to you need to find the silver lining in everything. Sometimes a negative is just a negative. Sometimes shit sucks. And that's all there is to it. But sometimes there's lessons within that shit that we can learn from, that we can suddenly realize, oh, that's because I needed to go through this micromanaging hell. I needed to feel belittled and I needed to feel untrustworthy and threatening, because that needed to happen. The other person who was micromanaging me needed to see, oh, positive influence on our business. That's a toxic environment. I have created a toxic environment and I need to change my ways, or I'm going to lose another positive influence on our business. I needed to experience toxic management because I had never experienced that before, which is weird. And I can say that I am lucky that I had never experienced toxic management before. And I want to let everyone know that toxic management is toxic. Micromanagement is toxic. And if you are part of a toxic management lifestyle, you need to change. But anyway, that is a conversation for another day. Let's go back to focusing on the positives, because that's the whole point of this morning, is focusing on the positives and not the negatives. What positive things that you realize you were just holding on to for secondary happened to you this year? Between this time last year and now, what positives? Did you get a new job? Do you notice that you're not tired coming home from work every day? Do you notice that your relationships are better? Did you remove any toxic friendships from your life that you realized you were just holding on to for secondary gain, and now you feel much better for it? Did you notice that you were holding on to old, outdated structures and values because you thought that is what you needed? But then as soon as you let them go, now you're happy. You're joyous, positive, and fulfilled. When things get uncomfortable, what do we do? Positive changes are always the hardest, because those are the ones that cause the biggest disruption in our unconscious. Our unconscious is mapped in a certain way, and when we try to remap what might have been a negative incident into a positive, your brain goes through the error 404, link not found. Your brain says this can't be right, and so you start to feel uncomfortable because your subconscious is telling you, we're trying to remap something that should not be remapped. That toxic relationship is... And so, when things get uncomfortable, what do we do? We remove ourselves from the situation because we don't like being uncomfortable. And what we can do to continue we just like being. The old adage that the positives stop learning, or that I sometimes like to call it splash damage. Where, you know what, you might have lost a couple of friends over the last year. You might have had a falling out because you think of situations in two different ways. You might see viewpoints in different ways, and whether your friend that you had the falling out refuses to see your model of the world, or refuses to accept your model of the world, or maybe you refuse to see their model of the world. Regardless, are you happier now that that toxic relationship is no longer here? What I thought in a great job. I didn't get along with the management, but you know what? That's fine. Throwback Thursday for me is a chance to reflect agoraphobia is a fear on how we've grown over the last social anxiety year, and what we can do to continue our growth. The old adage that you never stop learning, or that it is, unless you actively continue to learn and grow. And I'm not talking about being a professional student, I'm talking about being you. Things are constantly changing. And if you don't want to change with them, then sometimes you do get left behind. So for me, this time last year, as I mentioned before, I was what I thought in a great job. I didn't get along with the management, but you know what? That's fine, because the positives outweighed the negatives. I was still living with agoraphobia. Agoraphobia is a fear of leaving the house due to my social anxiety. There was some flare-ups, and I would be physically sick before I left the house. And this time last year, I worked from home, so I didn't have to leave the house. So I could just get other people. Therapy wasn't working for me. Don't get me wrong, my counselor was amazing, and I love her to death, and I want to keep working with her in a different capacity. She is huge, and I want to give her a shout out, and I hope that she's watching, but she's probably not because it's super early in the morning. But I spent hundreds of dollars a month on traditional talk therapy, only to be left with more questions, only to be left with emotions that were constantly bubbling up, but then we would never get the chance to really experience them. I would never get the chance to unpack them because we are always limited in the amount of time we spent together. Now, I'm grocery shopping. Then I found live streaming on the transformational life coaching. I have my own coaching, and I was able to experience my subconscious. I was able to experience my timeline. I was able to go back and find out what exactly started triggering my social anxiety from when I was a kid. I was able to be smart and attractive at the same time. It just doesn't happen. But now I know that I am. And so I found, I don't want to call it enlightenment, but I found a sort of release for changes happen to you for my anxiety, and within that 10 hours of transformational life coaching, not only was I able to overcome my agoraphobia, I was able to learn more successful coping techniques for my social anxiety. I was able to learn breathing techniques for the hardest part about my anxiety from when I'm in public places. Until the cows come home. Now, I'm grocery shopping. It's never gonna stick. I'm live streaming on the internet. So I have my own coaching business. I work for myself. And just I am far more happier now. I have a sense of fulfillment now. I am fulfilling my life's purpose. What negative changes happened to you this past year that you kind of just said, welp, it is what it is, and you just went with the flow because changing it, that's too much work, or you don't feel it's within your realm of control, or it is what it is, you just don't care. The hardest part about making change is that you can say something until the cows come home, but until there is a guilt trigger, it's never gonna stick. So let's spend another few minutes. Let's get my super favorite wallpaper going on. And just think about the changes that you want to make in your life in the next week. Let's make this an immediate project. What positive changes do you want to make in the some snarly stuff happening right now. Wow, I apologize that this audio is redonk. I'm not too sure exactly what's happening with the audio right now. but that is some snarly stuff happening right now. So I am actually going to unfortunately stop the stream because this is weird. I don't know what is happening. I haven't handled this before. So I hope that you guys were able to get some positivity out of this at least. And we will try again tomorrow for Feedback Friday. I do want to hear your feedback. I do want to hear how you felt this last week has gone, starting your morning out with me, and starting your morning on a positive note. And I do want to hear, hey, your audio seemed okay on Monday, and then it was shit on Tuesday. Let me know any feedback from the technical side of things, because again, as a streamer, I can only see half of what's happening. But I do want to say thank you for hanging out. So I am actually going to unfortunately stop the stream early because this is weird. I don't know what is happening. So positivity out of this at least. And we will try again tomorrow for Feedback Friday. I do want to hear your feedback. I do want to hear how you felt this last week has gone, starting your morning out with me and starting your morning on a positive note. And I do want to hear, hey, you know what, your audio seemed okay on Monday, and then it was shit on Tuesday. Let me know any feedback from the technical side of things, because again, as a streamer, I can only see half of what's happening. But I do want to say thank you for hanging out with me this morning, and I'm going to try and keep the chill music going for a little bit, just so that you can at least continue your meditations, or you can continue to reflect on what changes you want to make this week. And if you have any questions or anything, please feel free to shoot 19-378-5992. In Dungeons and Dragons, when a player uses the help action, the other player gets to roll with advantage. So let me use the help action to help you live with advantage.